I have to tell you, this is a wonderful surprise. The Cons are here. They came all the way from Connecticut just to be here today. And for those of you that don't know, Patricia is Joseph F. Lamb's daughter. And Joe Lamb, of course, is one of the three great ragtime composers that we have had, and the other two being James Scott and, of course, Scott Joplin. My name is Glenn Jenks. I'm the guy with the main license plates that say ragtime. And, yeah, right. There's only one person that can have those. I used to know some of the other people in the ragtime field that had the ragtime license plates. For instance, Jeannie Wright had the California ragtime license plate for a long time. Who's got the Missouri ones? Anybody remember?
Bill Edwards got the Virginia one.
Oh, is that right?
He has ragtime on his.
Wonderful. Oh, ragtime is big business, you know. A little story. This lovely princess and her handmaiden are walking through the woods, and nice day, just like today. And they look down, and there's this frog who, of all things, speaks to them and says, "Oh, fair princess, this wicked witch has cast a spell on me and turned me into this horrible-looking frog. Kiss me, and I'll turn into a handsome ragtime piano player." And the princess reaches down and picks up the frog and sticks it in her pocket, and her handmaiden turns to her and says, "Aren't you going to kiss him?" She says, "Hell no, he's worth a lot more as a talking frog." True story. I was touring, doing ragtime festivals for many, many years until about 5 years ago, and I decided to retire because I needed to make some money for retirement. We do this because we love it. Absolutely. There's no question about it. I am now strictly a teacher, and I've brought a few tunes with me to play for you today, and we'll see how they go. But I'm fairly experienced in having been to about 50 or 60 ragtime festivals over the years, and I love to pay attention at the seminars where they talk about this stuff, what it was, what it means to us both now and what it meant to folks back then. You have to remember that this was music that was made by young people, for young people. Now, think of your, well, I say, look at the audience, think of your grandchildren, all right? That's who was playing and writing ragtime back 120 years ago. Well, ragtime is something which is so infectious. Every time somebody who knows something about the piano hears it, they come up to me and they say, "Oh, man, that's great. Could you teach me how to play ragtime?" And I look at them and I say, "How many years have you been playing the piano?" And they'll tell me, 1 or 2, Well, in order to play ragtime, you need to know how to play the piano. It's as simple as that. You need certain basic techniques, stuff that you need to be able to play scales and arpeggios. You need to be able to read music. You need to be able to count. And you need to be able to deal with the whole concept of syncopation, which I'll get to in just a moment. They can be very difficult. If you want to put them in a scale of difficulty, the easier ones start at about the advanced intermediate level. Now, for those of you that play the piano, that probably means Clementi, or some of the easier early Bach things, and a few of the simple Schubert and Beethoven things. The tough rags are beyond the difficulty of, say, Mozart and some of Beethoven. So we're talking really challenging stuff here. Interestingly, as just an aside here, most pop musicians that achieve a high degree of success are classically trained. That is to say, they're taught how to play the piano and all the techniques that are involved. Billy Joel, he's a classically trained musician. Neil Sedaka, would you believe it? He's a conservatory graduate. And he just sings now. What the hey? There's one particular technique in ragtime, which, and I don't want to get too technical here, but it's called boom chick. And it relates to this hand, the left hand. And it sounds like this. Boom, chick. The boom is an octave. Chick is a chord. And it's phrased like that. And you need to know how to do it. Tony Caramia, who was head of pedagogy at the Eastman School in Rochester, piano pedagogy, he and I discussed this at length one time in Sedalia, Missouri. Tony's a ragtime piano player, and one of his specialties is novelty ragtime. But he and I both looked each other in the eye and said, you know what? There is no way, no simple way to teach boom chick. You've got to learn it by doing it. And I spent hours and hours and hours practicing it. And as I would practice ragtime, my left hand, because you wanted to be accurate, you wanted to hit the right notes, and you have to jump back and forth all over the piano, my back would get so seized up that I would have to lie down flat on the floor for 10 minutes sometimes to loosen that muscle up again so I could go back to practicing. So, yeah, there's a real challenge to playing ragtime, not the least of which is understanding the syncopation. So what is syncopation anyway? You've probably heard this word, but not everybody knows what it means. People confuse it sometimes with swing, and it's not the same thing. Syncopation relates to putting the accent on the wrong syllable, sort of. If I were to play the second strain of the Maple Leaf Rag without syncopation, it would sound like this. With the syncopation, it sounds like this. Wow, what a difference. Do you hear how it drives that music forward? It's because the right hand is playing slightly ahead of the beat, in between the strong beats. Listen to it slowly. So you're constantly anticipating the main melodic figure. It has an absolutely intoxicating effect. And when it was first becoming popular, We think, and we don't know for sure, but we think the way ragtime got its name was some music critic somewhere said, music in ragged time. Yeah. Well, that was it. That describes it perfectly. Okay, what did people do with this? Well, it was just emerging as a popular form of playing the piano in the early 1890s. And one of the first places where musicians could get together and talk about this stuff was at the Columbian Exposition. You recall that took place in 1892, 93, yeah. It was slightly delayed, wasn't it? Yes. And some of the black itinerant pianists could not actually get into the main grounds, but they would hang about some of the bars around the perimeter of the big exposition and swap musical tales, so to speak. And they learned from each other. The Midwest was the site of most of this activity, but it quickly spread to other places such as New York and even as far as the West Coast, which makes ragtime the first nationwide form of popular music. This is the 1890s. By the way, the Maple Leaf Rag was written, we think, around 1897, published in 1899. And for something that's that old, it's incredibly infectious. It sounds absolutely like it could have been written yesterday. Classic ragtime is the kind of ragtime that we attribute to the big three, the ones I just mentioned, James Scott, Joseph Lamb, and Scott Joplin. The reason we call it classic ragtime has something to do with the fact that it is closer in spirit to classical music than it is to, say, folk music. Folk ragtime was really at the source of the development of ragtime. Sue Keller, she's over here. She's a good friend of mine. I'm here because of Sue, actually. Sue, could you give us a little demonstration? She plays the piano, by the way.
Oh, no.
Yes. It's a fact. William Krell wrote a piece. It was one of the very first pieces of ragtime that was published. And what was it, 1897, was it? Yeah, I think so.
Well, let me think. Mississippi Rag? Yeah, I think it was 1897.
1897, at any rate.
Yeah, I'm close enough for rock and roll.
Yeah. Just play the first straight for us, would you?
There's the first string.
That's the first rate, thank you. William Krell was actually a white band leader, and the folk ragtime that he wrote was pretty authentic, actually.
Yeah.
And Mississippi Rag was, relatively speaking, a pretty good-sized hit.